7-year-old brothers, tell Millionaire CEO, 2 chocolates and we'll fix your car. She laughs. Before the story begins, let's make this personal. What brought you here today? A recommendation, curiosity, or maybe just the universe guiding you? The morning sun cast long shadows across Millfield's quiet main street when the unmistakable roar of a classic Ford Mustang echoed through the peaceful neighborhood. Behind the wheel sat Victoria Sterling, 27 years old, and CEO of Sterling Tech Solutions, her blonde hair catching the sunlight as she gripped the steering wheel of her prized 1965 blue Mustang. Victoria had been driving cross-country, taking a rare break from her demanding corporate life, when fate decided to intervene in the most unexpected way. As she approached the town center, her beloved car began making concerning sounds, a rhythmic knocking that made her heart sink. "Come on, Blue," she whispered to her car, using the pet name she'd given it years ago. "Don't give up on me now." But Blue had other plans. With a final sputter and wheeze, the magnificent machine coasted to a stop right in front of a modest white house with a small garden where 2 identical 7-year-old boys were playing. Lucas and Ethan Wright looked up from their elaborate Lego construction project as the beautiful blue car rolled to a halt. Their matching blonde hair was tousled from their morning adventures, and their bright eyes immediately fixed on the vintage automobile with fascination. "Ethan, look at that Mustang," whispered Lucas, his genius mind already analyzing the car's design. "It's a 65 first generation, probably a 289 V8 engine." Ethan nodded eagerly, his engineering instincts kicking in as he heard the engine's distressed sounds. "The timing sounds off, Lucas. Listen to that knock. Could be the timing chain or maybe carburetor issues." Victoria stepped out of the car, her designer business attire looking somewhat out of place in the humble neighborhood. She opened the hood and stared helplessly at the complex machinery beneath, pulling out her phone to search for nearby mechanics. "Excuse me, miss?" came a small voice behind her. She turned to see both boys approaching respectfully, their faces showing genuine concern rather than mere curiosity. "We couldn't help but notice your car trouble," continued Lucas politely. "We might be able to help you fix it." Victoria smiled at their earnestness, but shook her head gently. "That's very sweet of you boys, but this is a pretty complicated machine. I need to find a real mechanic." "But we are real mechanics," protested Ethan with endearing confidence. "Well, sort of. We fix lots of things around here. Your timing chain is probably stretched, and the carburetor needs adjustment." Victoria blinked in surprise. These children were using terminology that many adults wouldn't understand. "How do you know about timing chains and carburetors?" "Our Grandpa Wright taught us," Lucas explained proudly. "He used to work on aircraft engines in the Korean War. He says understanding engines is like understanding the heartbeat of machines." Just then, an elderly man appeared from around the house, wiping his hands on an old rag. Grandpa Wright, 78 years old, with kind eyes and weathered hands, approached with a warm smile. "I see the boys have found themselves another project," he chuckled. "I'm Henry Wright. These are my grandsons, Lucas and Ethan. Don't mind their enthusiasm. They've got quite the knack for fixing things." Victoria introduced herself, still somewhat bewildered by the situation. "I'm Victoria Sterling. My car just broke down, and your grandsons seem to think they can fix it." "Oh, they probably can," Grandpa Wright said matter-of-factly. "These 2 have been taking apart and putting together machines since they could hold a screwdriver." "What do you think, boys?" The twins exchanged a look that seemed to communicate volumes. "We could fix it for 2 chocolate bars," announced Ethan with the serious negotiating tone of a 7-year-old entrepreneur. "2 chocolate bars." Victoria laughed, charmed despite herself. "Each," added Lucas importantly, "so 4 chocolate bars total. It's our standard rate for classic car repairs." Victoria found herself genuinely intrigued. There was something unusual about these children. The way they spoke about engines, their confidence, and most surprisingly, their apparent knowledge of her car's specific problems without even looking under the hood properly. "All right," she said, making a decision that would change everything. 4 chocolate bars it is, but if you can't fix it, I still need to call a real mechanic." "Deal," said both boys simultaneously, their faces lighting up with excitement. As Victoria watched them approach her precious blue Mustang with the focused intensity of seasoned professionals, she had no idea she was about to discover something extraordinary about the Wright family, a secret that would reveal just how special these 7-year-old twins really were. The adventure was just beginning in the quiet town of Millfield, where genius came in small packages and miracles happened in the most unexpected ways. Victoria watched in amazement as Lucas immediately began circling her Mustang, his young eyes scanning every detail with the precision of a trained inspector. Meanwhile, Ethan had already retrieved a small toolbox from somewhere behind the house, a genuine mechanic's kit, perfectly organized despite its owner being only 7 years old. "First, we need to listen to the engine's story," Lucas announced, placing his small hand on the hood with surprising reverence. "Every car tells you what's wrong if you know how to hear it. Lucas always talks to machines like they're people," Ethan explained to Victoria with a grin. "But it actually works. He can hear things that grown-ups miss." Victoria found herself leaning in, genuinely curious about their approach. In her corporate world, she was used to dealing with complex systems and problem-solving, but she'd never seen anything quite like this. "Your Mustang is a beauty," Lucas said, running his fingers along the fender with expert appreciation. "Original Wimbledon white-blue paint, I'd guess. The chrome work is pristine. You've taken excellent care of her." Victoria's eyebrows shot up. "How do you know about Wimbledon white-blue? That's a very specific Ford color designation. Grandpa has every car manual from 1960 to 1975. Ethan replied casually while organizing his tools. "We've memorized most of them. It's like bedtime stories, but with horsepower specifications." Grandpa Wright had been quietly observing from the porch, and now he approached with a knowing smile. "Boys, why don't you show Miss Sterling what you can really do?" Lucas nodded seriously and approached the engine bay. Without hesitation, he began pointing to various components. "See here? The timing chain tensioner is worn. The carburetor's float is probably sticking, causing an irregular fuel mixture. And," he paused, listening intently, "your distributor advance mechanism needs calibration." Victoria stared at him in disbelief. "Those are exactly the problems my mechanic in San Francisco identified last month, but he said they weren't urgent yet." "They weren't urgent then," Ethan said matter-of-factly, peering into the engine compartment. "But timing chains wear progressively. Your symptoms probably started subtly about 2 weeks ago, with slight morning hesitation, then progressed to today's breakdown." That's exactly what happened," Victoria whispered, her business mind racing. These weren't ordinary children making lucky guesses. This was genuine expertise. "Don't worry, Miss Victoria," Lucas said kindly, noticing her bewildered expression. "We see this pattern a lot. Classic cars need special understanding. They're not like modern vehicles with computer diagnostics." As the boys began their work, Victoria noticed something extraordinary. Lucas would call out technical specifications, set the point gap to 0.016 inches, while Ethan would nod and make precise adjustments without measuring, as if his hands instinctively knew the correct settings. "How long have you boys been fixing cars?" Victoria asked, pulling out her phone to record this remarkable scene. "Since we were 5, they answered in unison. "But seriously," she pressed, "where did you learn all this technical knowledge?" Grandpa Wright chuckled from his lawn chair. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you, Miss Sterling. These boys have a gift that goes beyond normal learning." Victoria's CEO instincts were now fully engaged. She'd built her company by recognizing exceptional talent, and what she was witnessing defied explanation. These children weren't just mechanically inclined. They demonstrated knowledge that should take decades to acquire. "The carburetor's clean now," announced Ethan, his small hands working with the confidence of a master craftsman. "Lucas, can you calculate the optimal fuel-air mixture for current atmospheric conditions?" Lucas closed his eyes for a moment, as if performing complex calculations in his head. "Altitude 700 feet, humidity 68%, temperature 72 degrees Fahrenheit." Adjust the mixture screw 1 3/4 turns counterclockwise. Victoria's mouth fell open. She was witnessing something impossible. 2 7-year-olds performing automotive diagnostics that would challenge experienced professionals. As Ethan made the precise adjustment Lucas had calculated, Victoria realized she was no longer just a stranded motorist seeking help. She had stumbled upon something remarkable, something that her successful business career had taught her to recognize. Extraordinary hidden talent. "Boys," she said carefully, "I think we need to have a longer conversation after you fix my car." 20 minutes later, Victoria turned the key in her ignition, and the Mustang roared to life with a smooth, powerful purr that hadn't been there in months. The engine ran like a dream, better than it had since she'd bought the classic car 3 years ago. "I can't believe it," she said, stepping out of the driver's seat with genuine amazement. "This is incredible work. You boys are absolutely remarkable." Lucas and Ethan beamed with pride, their small faces glowing with satisfaction. But Victoria noticed something else in their expressions, a flicker of worry, as if they'd revealed more than they intended. "Miss Victoria," Lucas said carefully, "could you please not tell anyone about what we did today?" "Why not?" Victoria asked, kneeling down to their eye level. "You should be proud of this talent. This is extraordinary." The twins exchanged one of their silent communications before Ethan spoke up. "People don't understand. They think we're weird or that we're lying about our ages." Grandpa Wright approached, his weathered face showing a mixture of pride and concern. "Miss Sterling, could we invite you in for some sweet tea? I think there's something you should know about my grandsons." Victoria followed the family into their modest but warm home. The living room was filled with an unusual sight. Technical manuals, engineering textbooks, and complicated blueprints scattered alongside typical 7-year-old toys. A half-built radio sat next to a coloring book, and mathematical equations were written in crayon on a small chalkboard. "The boys don't just fix cars," Grandpa Wright began, settling into his worn armchair. "They've been different since they were very small. When other children their age were learning to tie their shoes, Lucas and Ethan were solving algebra problems for fun. We tried to keep it quiet," came a voice from the kitchen doorway. Victoria turned to see a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, clearly the boy's mother. "Maggie Wright. I'm Margaret Wright, but everyone calls me Maggie," she introduced herself, wiping flour from her hands on her apron. "I work cleaning houses around town to support us. These boys, they're special, but it hasn't always been a blessing." Victoria could see the love and worry in Maggie's eyes. "What do you mean?" "When they were 5, we had them tested," Grandpa Wright explained. "The psychologist said their IQ scores were off the charts, over 200 each. But when word got out in our old town, everything changed." Lucas climbed onto the couch beside his grandfather. "People started treating us like we were freaks or science experiments instead of kids. They wanted to study us or put us in special programs far away from our family. Some folks thought we were lying about their abilities," Maggie added sadly. "Others wanted to exploit them. We had to move here to Millfield to start over, to let them just be children." Ethan nodded solemnly. "That's why we only fix things for chocolate bars. If we charged real money, people would ask too many questions." Victoria felt her heart breaking for this family. Here were 2 extraordinary children who had to hide their gifts to protect their simple, loving life together. As a successful businesswoman, she understood the pressure and exploitation they must have faced. "We've been happy here," Maggie continued. "The neighbors think the boys are just handy kids who learned from their grandfather. Mrs. Henderson helps watch them when I work, and everyone treats them normally. It's what they need. But hiding their abilities seems like such a waste," Victoria said gently. "These boys could change the world with minds like theirs." "Maybe someday," Grandpa Wright replied. "But right now, they need to be 7-year-old boys who happen to be geniuses, not geniuses who happen to be 7 years old. There's a difference." Lucas looked up at Victoria with those bright, intelligent eyes. Will you keep our secret, Miss Victoria? We like fixing things and helping people, but we don't want to be famous or taken away from our family. Victoria looked around the room at this remarkable family. A hard-working single mother, a caring grandfather, and two brilliant boys who just wanted to be loved and accepted. She thought about her own corporate world, where talent was often commodified and exploited. Your secret is safe with me, she promised. But I want you boys to know something important. Being different isn't something to be ashamed of. You have incredible gifts, and someday, when you're ready, you'll find a way to use them that makes you happy. The relief on all their faces was palpable. Victoria realized she had stumbled upon something far more valuable than automotive repair. She had discovered a family that understood what truly mattered. Success wasn't just about intelligence or achievement. It was about love, protection, and allowing children to grow at their own pace. As she prepared to leave, Victoria knew this encounter had changed her perspective forever. These weren't just genius children. They were Lucas and Ethan Wright, beloved grandsons and sons who happened to possess extraordinary minds. Victoria walked to her perfectly running Mustang, but instead of getting in, she leaned against the driver's door and looked back at the Wright family gathered on their front porch. An idea was forming in her mind, one that could honor their wishes while still recognizing the boys' incredible talents. "Before I go," she said, "I have a proposition for you all." The family exchanged curious glances as Victoria pulled out her business card and handed it to Maggie. "I run a technology company in San Francisco. We're always working with complex systems and solving difficult problems." "Miss Victoria," Lucas interrupted politely, "we don't want to leave Millfield or our family." "And I wouldn't ask you to," Victoria smiled. "But what if I told you that some of the smartest engineers I know work remotely? They solve problems from their home offices, send solutions via email, and nobody ever has to know their age or location." Ethan's eyes lit up with interest. "You mean we could help fix things for people far away?" "Exactly. I could send you technical challenges, broken systems, design problems, efficiency issues, and you could work on them right here at home. No one would need to know you're 7 years old. They'd just know that the solutions work." Grandpa Wright stroked his chin thoughtfully. "What kind of payment are we talking about, Miss Sterling?" Victoria grinned. "Well, since your standard rate is chocolate bars, I was thinking we could establish a chocolate bar trust fund. For every problem you solve, I'll deposit the equivalent of, say, 50 chocolate bars into a special account for your education." Lucas and Ethan looked at each other with wonder. 50 chocolate bars per problem?" Lucas asked in amazement. "That's a lot of chocolate," Ethan whispered. Maggie stepped forward, her expression both hopeful and cautious. "Miss Sterling, this is incredibly generous, but we can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Victoria replied firmly. "It's business. Good problem-solving is valuable regardless of who provides it. Your boys fixed my car better than my expensive San Francisco mechanic. That's worth compensation. But what if we can't solve the problems you send?" Lucas worried. Victoria knelt down to their level once more. "Then you simply send them back unsolved. No pressure, no deadlines, no stress. This would just be extra puzzles for you to work on when you feel like it." Grandpa Wright looked thoughtful. "The boys do love a good challenge. Just yesterday, Ethan redesigned Mrs. Henderson's garden sprinkler system to use 30% less water. And Lucas calculated the optimal angles," Ethan added proudly. "See," Victoria said, "you're natural problem solvers. I'm just offering to connect your talents with people who need solutions." Maggie wiped her eyes, clearly moved by the offer. "The boys' education fund, that would mean so much. I work hard, but saving for college on a house cleaner's salary. Every child deserves the chance to pursue their dreams," Victoria said gently. "Especially children with minds like theirs." Lucas tugged on Victoria's sleeve. "Miss Victoria, could we think about it? We like to discuss big decisions as a family." "Of course," Victoria smiled. "Take all the time you need. Here's my personal number. Call me when you're ready, or if you never call, that's okay too." As she prepared to leave, Ethan suddenly ran into the house and returned with a small paper bag. "We forgot your chocolate bars," he announced, presenting her with 4 candy bars from their personal stash. Victoria laughed, her heart melting at their earnestness. "You boys earned those fair and square." "A deal is a deal," Lucas insisted seriously. "Grandpa taught us that a person's word is their bond." Victoria accepted the chocolate bars with ceremony, understanding that this simple transaction represented something much deeper: trust, integrity, and the values that this special family held dear. "Thank you for fixing my car," she said, "and thank you for trusting me with your secret." As she drove away in her perfectly running Mustang, Victoria glanced in her rearview mirror to see the Wright family still waving from their porch. She had come to Millfield as a stranded motorist, seeking mechanical help. She was leaving as someone who had discovered that the most valuable repairs weren't just to engines. Sometimes they were to faith in human kindness and the belief that extraordinary talent could coexist with ordinary love. The chocolate bars sat on her passenger seat, worth more to her than any expensive repair bill could ever be. They represented a promise made by 2 remarkable 7-year-old boys who understood that keeping your word mattered more than showing off your genius. Victoria smiled as she headed back toward the highway, already composing the first technical challenge she might send to her new favorite problem solvers. After all, she had a feeling that Lucas and Ethan Wright were just getting started on changing the world, one chocolate bar at a time. That evening, the Wright family gathered around their kitchen table for what Grandpa Wright called a family council meeting. It was their tradition whenever important decisions needed to be made. Everyone got to speak their mind, from the youngest to the oldest. Maggie had prepared chocolate chip cookies, and the boys sat with glasses of milk, their faces serious as they considered Victoria Sterling's proposition. The business card lay in the center of the table like a bridge to a possible future. "Let's start with you boys," Grandpa Wright said gently. "How do you feel about Miss Sterling's offer?" Lucas traced patterns on the table with his finger, a habit he had when thinking deeply. "I like that she wants to pay us fairly for our work. It shows she respects what we can do, and I like that we could help people without them knowing who we are," Ethan added. "It feels safer." Maggie reached across to squeeze both boys' hands. "But I want you to understand, you don't have to do this. You're children first, and your childhood is precious. I don't want you to feel pressured to work just because we need money." "But Mom," Lucas said earnestly, "we love solving problems. It's not work when it's fun." Grandpa Wright nodded thoughtfully. "When I was your age, I took apart every clock in the house just to see how they worked. Your grandmother was not pleased," he chuckled, "but that curiosity led me to my career in aircraft mechanics. Sometimes what feels like play becomes your life's purpose." "What worries me," Maggie continued, "is what happened before, when people find out about your abilities." "But Miss Victoria is different," Ethan interrupted. "She saw what we could do and wanted to protect us, not exploit us." Mrs. Henderson's voice came from the back door. "Sorry to interrupt, but I heard voices and saw the lights on. Everything all right?" The elderly neighbor had become like family to the Wrights, and they quickly explained the situation. Mrs. Henderson listened carefully, her experienced teacher's mind weighing the possibilities. "That young woman seemed genuine," she said thoughtfully. "And the boys do spend half their time fixing things anyway. At least this way, their talents could help build their future." Lucas looked up at his mother with those remarkably mature eyes. "Mom, what if we start small? Maybe try 1 or 2 problems and see how it goes. And if it gets weird or scary, we can stop any time," Ethan added pragmatically. Maggie felt tears welling up as she looked at her remarkable sons. They were wise beyond their years, yet still so young. She worried about protecting their innocence while nurturing their extraordinary gifts. "I've been thinking about college," she said quietly. "You boys are going to need opportunities that I can't provide on my salary. This could open doors for you. What does your heart tell you?" "Maggie?" Grandpa Wright asked his daughter kindly. Maggie looked around the table at the people she loved most in the world. My heart says that Miss Sterling saw our boys and wanted to help them, not use them. She respected our family and our values. And she gave us chocolate bars, Lucas pointed out seriously, making everyone laugh. Very important consideration, Grandpa Wright agreed with mock solemnity. Mrs. Henderson leaned forward. I could help monitor any communications, make sure everything stays appropriate and safe. It would be like having a guardian angel for our business, Ethan said, brightening at the idea. Maggie realized that her children weren't just gifted intellectually, they had inherited her practical wisdom and her father's steady judgment. They understood the risks and were proposing reasonable safeguards. All right, she said finally, we'll try it. But with conditions, family always comes first, school is still your main job, and if anything feels wrong, we stop immediately. Both boys jumped up to hug their mother, their excitement bubbling over. Should we call Miss Victoria tonight? Lucas asked eagerly. Tomorrow, Grandpa Wright decided. Big decisions deserve a good night's sleep to make sure they still feel right in the morning. As they cleaned up the kitchen together, Maggie watched her sons chattering excitedly about the possibilities. She felt a mixture of hope and fear, hope that this could provide opportunities she'd dreamed of giving them, and fear that the outside world might once again threaten their peaceful life in Millfield. But looking at their bright, happy faces, she realized that hiding their gifts completely wasn't protecting them, it was limiting them. Victoria Sterling had offered them a chance to use their talents safely, with their family intact and their anonymity preserved. Mom, Ethan said, as she tucked them into their shared bedroom, do you think Miss Victoria will send us really hard problems? I hope so, Lucas added. Easy problems are boring. Maggie kissed both boys goodnight, marveling at children who hoped for difficult challenges instead of easy ones. Whatever problems she sends, I know you'll do your best. As she turned off their light, she heard Lucas whisper to his brother, Ethan, do you think we could design a better car engine? Probably, came Ethan's sleepy reply. But first, let's see what Miss Victoria needs fixed. Maggie smiled as she closed their door. Tomorrow would bring new adventures for her remarkable sons, and for the first time in years, she felt genuinely optimistic about their future. The next morning arrived with golden sunshine streaming through the Wright family kitchen windows. Lucas and Ethan had barely touched their breakfast, too excited to eat as they waited for permission to call Victoria Sterling. Boys, finish your eggs first, Maggie instructed with a gentle smile. Business discussions require proper nutrition. Grandpa Wright chuckled from behind his morning newspaper. Your mother's right. Can't have my grandsons making important calls on empty stomachs. After breakfast, with Mrs. Henderson present as their agreed-upon supervisor, Maggie dialed Victoria's number and put the phone on speaker. Miss Sterling, this is Maggie Wright. The boys have made their decision. Wonderful. I've been hoping to hear from you. What did the family council decide? Lucas leaned toward the phone. We'd like to try your chocolate bar business arrangement, Miss Victoria, but we want to start small. Very wise. Victoria's voice came through clearly. I actually have the perfect first challenge. One of my client companies has a manufacturing efficiency problem that's been stumping their engineers for weeks. Ethan's eyes lit up with interest. What kind of manufacturing? They produce specialized components for medical devices. Their assembly line keeps jamming at a specific station, causing costly delays. They've tried everything they can think of. Lucas was already reaching for paper and pencil. Could you send us the technical specifications and blueprints? Absolutely. But remember, there's no pressure. If you can't solve it, you simply send it back. This is meant to be fun for you. Mrs. Henderson spoke up. Miss Sterling, this is Eleanor Henderson, the boys' neighbor. I'll be monitoring their communications to ensure everything stays appropriate. Perfect. Mrs. Henderson, I'll send everything to a secure email address we'll set up. The boys can work at their own pace and respond when they're ready. Within an hour, the twins were spread out on their bedroom floor, surrounded by printed technical diagrams, mathematical calculations, and their collection of Legos, which they used to build physical models of complex systems. "Look at this, Ethan," Lucas said, pointing to a section of the assembly line blueprint. "The jam always happens at Station 7, right where the components make a 90-degree turn." Ethan studied the diagrams while unconsciously building a Lego replica of the problematic section. The timing mechanism is fighting against the conveyor speed. See how the components arrive every 2.3 seconds, but the insertion process takes 2.5 seconds. Exactly, Lucas began calculating furiously. But if we adjust the buffer zone and modify the approach angle for the next 3 hours, the boys worked with the focused intensity that had amazed Victoria. They built multiple Lego prototypes, tested different timing sequences, and covered several sheets of paper with calculations that would challenge graduate engineering students. Maggie peeked in periodically, bringing them snacks and marveling at their concentration. These weren't typical 7-year-old play sessions. This was serious problem-solving that happened to involve children. "I think we've got it," Ethan announced finally, holding up their final Lego model. "The solution isn't just about timing, it's about approach geometry." Lucas nodded enthusiastically. "If they change the conveyor angle from 90 degrees to 67 degrees and add a brief pause mechanism, the components will slide into position naturally instead of fighting the system." Mrs. Henderson, who had been quietly observing, shook her head in amazement. "Boys, I taught high school physics for 30 years. And I've never seen problem-solving like this." "Should we call Miss Victoria?" Ethan asked excitedly. "First, let's write up your solution properly," Grandpa Wright suggested. "In the business world, presentation matters as much as the answer." With help from Mrs. Henderson's teaching experience and Grandpa Wright's practical knowledge, the boys prepared a professional-looking report. Lucas handled the mathematical calculations and theoretical explanations, while Ethan focused on the practical implementation steps. Their final solution was remarkably comprehensive. Detailed measurements, timing adjustments, and even cost estimates for the modification. They included sketches, flowcharts, and step-by-step instructions that any manufacturing engineer could follow. That evening, they called Victoria with their results. "Miss Victoria, we think we solved your assembly line problem," Lucas announced proudly. "Really? That's fantastic. Can you walk me through your solution?" For the next 20 minutes, the twins alternated explaining their approach, using terminology and concepts that demonstrated genuine expertise. Victoria found herself taking notes, genuinely impressed by the thoroughness of their analysis. "Boys, this is extraordinary work. I'm going to forward your solution to my client immediately. If this works, and I believe it will, you've just saved them thousands of dollars in lost productivity." "Does this mean we earned our first 50 chocolate bars?" Ethan asked hopefully. Victoria laughed with delight. "You've earned them twice over. I'll set up your education account this week." After they hung up, the family celebrated with ice cream sundaes and stories of Grandpa Wright's own early problem-solving adventures. "I'm proud of you boys," Maggie said, hugging them both. "You took on a real challenge and handled it like professionals." "It was fun, Mom," Lucas replied. "I hope Miss Victoria sends us more problems to solve." As they prepared for bed, Victoria called back with exciting news. The manufacturing company had implemented their solution that afternoon, and the assembly line was running smoothly for the first time in weeks. "You boys are officially professional problem solvers now," she told them. "Welcome to the business world." That night, Lucas and Ethan fell asleep discussing possibilities for their next challenge, while Maggie and Grandpa Wright marveled at how perfectly Victoria Sterling had understood exactly what their remarkable grandsons needed. 3 weeks after their first successful project, Lucas and Ethan had solved 4 more technical challenges for Victoria's clients. Their bedroom had transformed into a miniature engineering laboratory, complete with organized filing systems created by Mrs. Henderson and a small desk donated by their proud grandfather. "Boys, you have another project request," Mrs. Henderson announced, entering their room with printed emails. But this one looks quite different from the others. Victoria's latest message described an unusual problem. A renewable energy company was struggling to optimize wind turbine placement on a mountainous terrain. Traditional modeling wasn't accounting for unexpected wind patterns that reduced efficiency by 30%. This isn't just engineering, Lucas observed, studying the topographical maps. We need to understand meteorology, geography, and fluid dynamics. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. And we'd need to visit the actual site to feel how the wind moves through those valleys. But we can't travel to Colorado, Lucas pointed out practically. Mom works, and we have school. For the first time since accepting Victoria's arrangement, the twins faced a challenge that seemed beyond their remote capabilities. They spent the morning brainstorming alternatives, but every solution required resources they didn't have. Maybe we should tell Miss Victoria we can't solve this one, Ethan suggested reluctantly. Lucas hated the idea of giving up, but he couldn't see another option. They were about to call Victoria when Grandpa Wright appeared in their doorway with a knowing smile. "Boys, I've been listening to your discussion. Mind if this old aircraft mechanic offers some perspective?" "Of course." "Grandpa," they said simultaneously, "during the war we often had to solve problems with limited information and no way to visit the sites we were supporting. We learned to think creatively about gathering data from a distance." Lucas's eyes brightened. "What kind of creative thinking?" "Well, what if you couldn't go to the wind site, but you could talk to people who work there every day? What if you studied weather patterns from satellite data? What if you built scale models to test your theories?" Ethan jumped up excitedly. "Grandpa, you're brilliant! We could interview the maintenance crew, analyze historical weather data, and use our Legos to build terrain models. And I could calculate wind flow patterns based on topographical mathematics," Lucas added, already reaching for his notebooks. Mrs. Henderson clapped her hands together. "That's the problem-solving spirit I love to see. Let me help you organize a proper research plan." Over the next week, the twins embarked on their most comprehensive project yet. With Mrs. Henderson's guidance, they conducted phone interviews with wind farm technicians, studied meteorological databases, and built detailed Lego models of the Colorado mountainous terrain. Lucas dove into advanced mathematics, learning about fluid dynamics equations that graduate students typically struggled with. Meanwhile, Ethan constructed increasingly sophisticated physical models, testing different turbine configurations using a fan and measuring airflow with improvised instruments. Maggie watched her son's intense focus with a mixture of pride and concern. "Are you sure this isn't too much pressure for them?" she asked Mrs. Henderson privately. "Look at their faces, Maggie," the older woman replied. "They're not stressed, they're thriving. This is what gifted children need. Challenges that stretch their abilities without overwhelming their spirits." The breakthrough came on a Saturday morning when Lucas suddenly sat up in bed with an excited shout. "Ethan, I figured it out. The wind patterns aren't random. They're following thermal updraft cycles that change with the seasonal sun angles." Ethan rushed to his brother's side, studying the calculations. "So if we adjust the turbine positions to account for seasonal variations instead of average wind speeds?" "Exactly. The turbines should be mobile or adjustable, not fixed in position." Their solution was revolutionary. Instead of finding the single best location for each turbine, they proposed a system where turbines could be repositioned seasonally to follow optimal wind patterns. They included detailed seasonal charts, cost-benefit analyses, and even suggestions for the mechanical systems needed for repositioning. When they presented their findings to Victoria, she was speechless for several moments. "Boys, this is beyond impressive. You've essentially redesigned how wind farms could operate. I need to get patent attorneys involved before I send this to my client." "Patent attorneys?" Lucas asked, unfamiliar with the term. When someone creates a truly innovative solution, they can register it legally so they receive credit and compensation if others use the idea. Your seasonal turbine positioning concept could be worth, well, much more than chocolate bars." The twins looked at each other with wonder and a touch of apprehension. "Miss Victoria," Ethan said carefully, "we don't want to become famous or have people asking questions about us." "Your anonymity will be completely protected," Victoria assured them. "The patents would be filed through my company, with you listed as the inventors only by your initials. LW and EW, Innovative Consultants." That evening, as the family celebrated their latest success, Grandpa Wright raised his glass of sweet tea in a toast to Lucas and Ethan, who proved that big solutions can come from small people with enormous hearts and minds. As they clinked glasses, Maggie realized that her sons weren't just solving technical problems, they were learning that their gifts could make a real difference in the world, all while staying true to their family values and maintaining their precious childhood in Millfield. 2 months into their consulting arrangement, life in the Wright household had settled into a comfortable routine. The twins completed their regular schoolwork in the mornings, worked on Victoria's challenges in the afternoons, and still had plenty of time for typical 7-year-old activities like playing with Legos and watching cartoons. Their success rate had been remarkable. They had solved every technical challenge Victoria had sent them, often with solutions that exceeded professional expectations. Their education account was growing steadily, and more importantly, the boys were thriving. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning when Victoria called with unusual excitement in her voice. "Boys, I have some extraordinary news. Your wind turbine solution has been implemented by my client, and the results are even better than we predicted. They're seeing 45% efficiency improvements." "That's wonderful," Lucas exclaimed. "We're so happy it worked." "But here's the thing," Victoria continued. "The innovation is so significant that it's attracting attention throughout the renewable energy industry. Several major companies want to meet with the brilliant consultants who designed this system." Ethan looked worried. "Miss Victoria, we can't meet with people. They'd find out we're just kids. I understand, and I've been protecting your anonymity, but there's something you should know. The Department of Energy wants to give the mysterious LW and EW consultants a National Innovation Award." The twins looked at each other with a mixture of pride and panic. A national award sounded amazing, but it also sounded terrifying. Mrs. Henderson, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "What would receiving this award entail, Miss Sterling?" "Typically, there would be a ceremony in Washington, D.C., media coverage, and significant recognition within the scientific community. It's one of the highest honors in renewable energy innovation." Maggie felt her protective instincts flaring. "Absolutely not. We can't risk that kind of exposure." "Mom," Lucas said thoughtfully, "what if there was a way to accept the honor without revealing who we are?" "I've been thinking about that," Victoria replied. "What if I accepted the award on behalf of my anonymous consulting team? I could represent LW and EW without revealing your identities." Grandpa Wright leaned forward with interest. "The boys deserve recognition for their achievements. Is there a way to make this work safely?" "I believe so," Victoria said. "I would accept the award as the team leader, acknowledging the brilliant contributions of my anonymous junior partners. The boys would get the honor they deserve, but their privacy would remain intact." That evening, the Wright family held another of their kitchen table councils. This decision felt bigger than their original arrangement with Victoria. This was about stepping into a larger world while trying to maintain their protective boundaries. "I'm scared," Ethan admitted honestly. "What if people figure out who we are?" "But I'm also excited," Lucas added. "We created something that's helping the whole country use clean energy better." Mrs. Henderson offered her teacher's perspective. "Recognition for achievements can be important for a child's development. It validates their efforts and builds confidence for future challenges." "But safety comes first," Maggie insisted. "If there's any risk of exposure," Grandpa Wright looked at his remarkable grandsons. "Boys, this is your decision. You created the innovation, and you should choose how to handle the recognition." After much discussion, the twins came to a characteristic compromise. They would allow Victoria to accept the award on their behalf, but they would write a joint statement about the importance of encouraging young innovators without revealing their specific ages or identities. 2 weeks later, Victoria called from Washington, D.C., her voice filled with emotion. "Boys, I just accepted your Department of Energy award. When I read your statement about the importance of nurturing young scientific minds regardless of age, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Did anyone ask questions about us?" Lucas worried. "They were curious, but I explained that my consultants prefer to let their work speak for itself. The focus stayed on the innovation and its impact on renewable energy development." That night, the Wright family watched the news coverage together. Seeing Victoria hold their award while speaking passionately about encouraging young innovators felt surreal and wonderful. "Look," Ethan pointed at the screen. "She's showing the diagram we drew." And she mentioned how important it is to protect innovative thinkers from unwanted attention, Lucas observed approvingly. As the news segment ended, Maggie hugged both boys tightly. "I'm so proud of you for finding a way to receive recognition while staying true to our family values." "Miss Victoria really understands us," Ethan said contentedly. "She's like a guardian angel for genius kids who just want to help people," Lucas added. That night, as Maggie tucked her sons into bed, she reflected on how perfectly their arrangement with Victoria Sterling had evolved. The boys were using their extraordinary gifts, gaining confidence and recognition, building their futures, all while remaining the beloved, protected children they needed to be. "Mom," Lucas whispered in the darkness, "do you think we can keep helping people this way?" "For as long as you want to, sweetheart," she replied. "You boys have found the perfect balance." And in the quiet of their Millfield bedroom, 2 7-year-old national award winners drifted off to sleep, dreaming of their next opportunity to change the world. One chocolate bar at a time. 3 days after Victoria's award ceremony, she called the Wright household with unprecedented urgency in her voice. "I need to speak with Lucas, Ethan, and the whole family immediately. This is extremely important." Within minutes, everyone had gathered around the kitchen table, with Mrs. Henderson joining them from next door. Victoria's voice came through the speakerphone with barely contained excitement. "A situation has developed that could be the most significant challenge you boys have ever faced. NASA has a critical problem with the International Space Station's solar array positioning system. It's malfunctioning, and they're losing power capacity daily." Lucas and Ethan looked at each other with wide eyes. NASA meant space, which meant the biggest engineering challenge imaginable. "The problem is complex," Victoria continued. "Traditional repair methods would require a dangerous spacewalk, risking astronaut lives. NASA's best engineers are stumped. They need an innovative solution that doesn't exist yet." "Miss Victoria," Ethan asked carefully, "why are they asking us?" After the wind turbine success and the award ceremony, word spread quietly through the scientific community about these mysterious LW and EW consultants who think differently from everyone else. "NASA contacted me specifically requesting your input." Grandpa Wright leaned forward. "What's the timeline on this?" "NASA needs a solution within 72 hours. If they can't fix the power issue, they may have to abort the current mission and bring the astronauts home early, setting back years of scientific research." The kitchen fell silent as the magnitude of the situation sank in. This wasn't just another engineering challenge. This was about real astronauts in real danger, performing real scientific work that mattered to the whole world. "Boys," Maggie said gently, "this sounds incredibly difficult and stressful. You don't have to take this on." Lucas looked thoughtful. "Mom, what if our idea could help keep astronauts safe? And what if we could help them continue their important research?" Ethan added. Mrs. Henderson spoke up with her teacher's wisdom. "Sometimes the most meaningful challenges are the most difficult ones. But you boys shouldn't feel pressured to save the world. We wouldn't be saving the world, Lucas corrected seriously. We'd just be trying to solve a problem that needs solving. Victoria's voice came through the phone again. I want you to know this problem has defeated some of the smartest aerospace engineers in the country. There's no shame if it's beyond what you can handle. Could you send us the technical specifications? Ethan asked. His engineering curiosity already engaged. The information is classified, but NASA has agreed to provide sanitized versions of the critical data if you're willing to try. Grandpa Wright looked at his grandsons with pride. Boys, this is your decision. But remember, sometimes the biggest honor isn't in succeeding, it's in being asked to try. After a brief family discussion, the twins agreed to examine the problem without committing to a solution. Victoria arranged for NASA to send the technical data through secure channels, with Mrs. Henderson overseeing all communications. By that afternoon, their bedroom looked like mission control. NASA had provided detailed schematics, video feeds from the space station, and direct communication with the astronauts who could describe the malfunction in real time. The problem was unlike anything they'd tackled before. The solar array's positioning motors were failing in the zero-gravity environment. But the arrays needed constant adjustment to track the sun and maintain power generation. Ethan, look at this, Lucas said, pointing to the motor specifications. The problem isn't mechanical failure. It's that the lubricants behave differently in space than they do on Earth. Ethan studied the data while building a Lego model of the solar array system. So, we need a solution that works without traditional lubricants, using only materials already available on the space station. For 18 straight hours, with breaks only for meals and quick naps, the boys worked with unprecedented intensity. They consulted physics textbooks, called Victoria, with questions for NASA experts, and built increasingly complex models to test their theories. The breakthrough came when Lucas remembered something from one of Grandpa Wright's war stories about aircraft maintenance in extreme conditions. Ethan, what if we don't try to fix the motors at all? What if we create a completely different way for the arrays to track the sun? Like what? Like using the station's gyroscopes and thruster system to orient the entire station instead of just the arrays. Ethan's eyes widened as he understood. So instead of the arrays moving to follow the sun, the whole station moves just slightly to keep the arrays optimally positioned. Their solution was elegantly simple. Use the space station's existing attitude control system to make tiny adjustments that would keep the solar arrays properly aligned without relying on the failing motors. They spent the next 12 hours calculating orbital mechanics, power consumption trade-offs, and safety protocols. Their final proposal included step-by-step procedures, mathematical proofs, and even suggestions for how to implement the solution using only equipment already aboard the station. When Victoria received their solution, she was quiet for a long moment before speaking. Boys, I'm sending this to NASA immediately. This is the kind of thinking that changes how people approach problems forever. 6 hours later, NASA called back. Their solution was being implemented immediately. The space station's first test adjustment had worked perfectly, maintaining optimal power generation while using minimal fuel. That evening, as the Wright family watched news coverage of the mysterious engineering breakthrough that saved the space station mission, Lucas and Ethan sat quietly, understanding for the first time the true scope of what their gifts could accomplish. "Are you boys okay?" Maggie asked, noticing their thoughtful silence. "We helped astronauts stay safe in space," Ethan said wonderingly. "And we helped them continue their research to help people on Earth," Lucas added. As they prepared for bed, both boys seemed different, more mature, more aware of the weight and wonder of their abilities. They had faced the ultimate engineering test and discovered they were capable of more than they'd ever imagined. The morning after their space station triumph, Lucas and Ethan woke to find their quiet life in Millfield suddenly complicated. Victoria called before breakfast with news that would change everything. Boys, we have a situation. The NASA solution has created what I can only describe as a media sensation. Everyone wants to know about the mysterious consultants who saved the space mission. Maggie felt her protective instincts surge. How much attention are we talking about? Major news networks, scientific journals, and technology companies are all trying to identify LW and EW. The speculation ranges from secret government think tanks to reclusive billionaire inventors. Lucas and Ethan exchanged worried glances. This was exactly what they'd always feared. Too much attention, threatening their peaceful family life. "Miss Victoria," Ethan asked nervously, "what do we do?" "That's what we need to discuss. I've been approached by representatives from MIT, Stanford, NASA, and several Fortune 500 companies. They all want to meet with my consulting team." Mrs. Henderson, who had arrived for her morning visit, listened with growing concern. "This sounds overwhelming for the boys." "It is overwhelming," Victoria agreed. "But it's also an unprecedented opportunity. These organizations aren't just offering recognition. They're offering resources, research partnerships, and educational opportunities that could benefit Lucas and Ethan for the rest of their lives." Grandpa Wright stroked his chin thoughtfully. "What kind of opportunities, Miss Sterling?" "Full scholarships to any university they choose, private tutoring with world-renowned experts, access to laboratories and equipment most graduate students never see, and the chance to work on cutting-edge projects that could change the world." "But they're 7 years old," Maggie protested. "They need childhoods, not careers." "I understand completely," Victoria replied. "But what if we could structure this so they get the benefits without the pressure? What if we created a unique arrangement that protects their anonymity while opening doors for their future?" Lucas had been thinking quietly. "Miss Victoria, could we meet with these people without them knowing who we are?" "How would that work?" Ethan asked, intrigued by his brother's idea. Victoria paused thoughtfully. "Actually, that's brilliant. What if we arranged for you to attend meetings virtually with voice modulation technology and avatar representations? You could interact with these experts, learn from them, and contribute to discussions without revealing your identities or ages." Mrs. Henderson's eyes lit up with her teacher's enthusiasm. They could essentially audit graduate-level discussions and research projects without the formal commitments. "And we could still live at home and be regular kids most of the time," Ethan added hopefully. "Exactly," Victoria confirmed. "Think of it as the world's most advanced homeschooling program. You'd learn from Nobel Prize winners, work on NASA projects, and collaborate with the brightest minds on Earth, all from your bedroom in Millfield." Maggie looked at her remarkable sons, seeing both excitement and apprehension in their faces. "Boys, this is a huge decision. Are you sure you're ready for this level of academic challenge?" "Mom," Lucas said earnestly, "we've been ready for advanced learning our whole lives. This just makes it possible without losing our family." That afternoon, the Wright family held their most important council meeting yet. With Mrs. Henderson's guidance, they carefully considered the implications of Victoria's proposal. "The educational opportunities are unprecedented," Mrs. Henderson noted, "but we must ensure the boys don't lose their childhood innocence." Grandpa Wright added his practical wisdom. "These boys were born with gifts that need nurturing. Hiding them completely isn't protecting them. It's wasting their potential to help others." After hours of discussion, they reached a carefully structured decision. Lucas and Ethan would participate in selected virtual meetings and research projects, with strict limits, no more than 2 hours per day, only on subjects that genuinely interested them, and with the absolute right to withdraw if the arrangement became stressful. Their first virtual meeting was scheduled for the following week, a NASA brainstorming session on future Mars exploration challenges. Using avatar technology and voice modulation, they would appear as LW and EW, mysterious young consultants with revolutionary problem-solving approaches. "Are you nervous?" Maggie asked, as she tucked them into bed the night before their debut. "A little," Lucas admitted, "but mostly excited. We get to help plan missions to Mars." And we get to learn from real rocket scientists, Ethan added with wonder. As Victoria had predicted, their virtual debut was extraordinary. Speaking through their digital avatars, the twins contributed insights that left NASA engineers speechless. Their fresh perspectives on life support systems and resource utilization sparked discussions that continued long after the official meeting ended. Word spread quickly through the scientific community about the remarkable virtual consultants who thought unlike anyone else. Within days, requests poured in from universities, research institutions, and technology companies around the world. We're like secret superheroes, Ethan whispered to his brother after their third successful virtual meeting. Except instead of fighting crime, we're solving science problems, Lucas replied with satisfaction. That evening, as the family celebrated another successful day of balancing childhood with genius, Victoria called with a surprising update. "Boys, I've been contacted by a documentary filmmaker who wants to make a film about anonymous young innovators. They're proposing to tell your story without revealing your identities, focusing on the importance of protecting gifted children while nurturing their talents." "Would people learn about us?" Lucas asked carefully. "They'd learn about your ideas, your approach to problem solving, and the importance of family support for gifted children, but your faces, names, and location would remain completely private." As the Wright family considered this new possibility, they realized that Lucas and Ethan had found something extraordinary, a way to change the world while remaining exactly who they'd always been, beloved children who happened to possess remarkable minds. Their secret was safe, their family was intact, and their future had never looked brighter. They had proven that genius could coexist with ordinary love, and that sometimes the best way to help the world was to start with chocolate bars and work your way up to the stars. 6 months into their new virtual consulting life, Lucas and Ethan had become legendary figures in the scientific community. The mysterious LW and EW consultants had contributed to breakthrough research in renewable energy, space exploration, medical device design, and environmental engineering. Their education account had grown beyond Maggie's wildest dreams, and prestigious universities were already reserving spots for them whenever they chose to attend. But on this particular Saturday morning, something was different in the Wright household. The boys sat at their kitchen table, their usually bright faces showing signs of exhaustion and concern. "Boys, you've barely touched your pancakes," Maggie observed. "Is everything all right?" Lucas pushed his food around his plate thoughtfully. "Mom, do you ever worry that we're becoming too different from other kids?" "What do you mean?" "Sweetheart," Ethan looked up from his untouched breakfast. "Yesterday, during the virtual meeting with the MIT professors, I realized I knew more about quantum mechanics than some graduate students. But I still can't tie my shoes really fast. And when we were working on the Mars habitat design," Lucas added, "I was calculating atmospheric pressure ratios, but all I really wanted to do was build a fort in the backyard with our regular Legos." Maggie sat down between her sons, her heart aching for these remarkable children who were struggling with the weight of their own gifts. "Are you saying you want to stop the virtual meetings?" she asked gently. "No," both boys said quickly. "We love solving problems and helping people," Ethan explained, "but sometimes we feel like we're missing out on being 7. Mrs. Henderson, who had been listening from the kitchen doorway, approached with her wise teacher's perspective. "Boys, what specifically do you feel you're missing?" Lucas thought carefully. "Yesterday I saw Tommy and Jake from down the street having a water balloon fight. It looked like so much fun, but I was in my room calculating orbital trajectories. And last week, when Sarah invited us to her birthday party, we couldn't go because we had that important conference call with the European Space Agency," Ethan added wistfully. Grandpa Wright, who had been reading his morning paper, looked up with understanding eyes. "Boys, it sounds like you need more balance in your lives." That afternoon, Victoria called for their weekly check-in, immediately noticing the subdued tone in the twins' voices. "What's wrong, boys? You sound different today." Miss Victoria, Lucas said honestly, we love our work, but we're feeling a little overwhelmed. We miss having more time for regular kid stuff, Ethan added. Victoria was quiet for a moment before responding with characteristic wisdom. Boys, do you know what the most successful people in the world have in common? What? They asked together. They understand the importance of balance. Work should enhance your life, not replace it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, we need to adjust our approach immediately. But we don't want to disappoint the scientists who depend on us, Lucas worried. And we like earning chocolate bar money for our education, Ethan added practically. Victoria laughed warmly. Boys, you could take a year-long vacation and still be ahead of schedule for everything we've planned. The scientific community will wait for you. That's how valuable your contributions are. That evening, the Wright family held another of their important kitchen table councils. This time, the discussion centered on finding better balance between the boys' extraordinary abilities and their ordinary childhood needs. What would make you happiest? Maggie asked her sons. Lucas considered carefully. I'd like to keep solving problems, but maybe only 2 days a week instead of every day. And I'd like to spend more time playing with neighborhood kids, Ethan added. Maybe we could invite them over to build Lego projects that aren't about saving the world. Mrs. Henderson clapped her hands together. What if we organized regular neighborhood activities? Science projects that are fun rather than groundbreaking? Grandpa Wright's eyes twinkled with mischief. I could teach the local kids some basic engineering using simple materials, make it feel like play instead of work. And I could arrange play dates and regular birthday parties, Maggie added. Things that help you feel connected to other children your age. The solution they developed was beautifully simple. Lucas and Ethan would limit their virtual consulting to Tuesdays and Thursdays, dedicating the rest of their time to being regular 7-year-olds who happened to be geniuses, rather than geniuses who happened to be 7. Victoria supported their decision completely, rearranging their schedule to accommodate more childhood. The scientific organizations they worked with not only understood, but admired the family's commitment to the boys' well-being. The following weekend, the Wright backyard was filled with neighborhood children building elaborate Lego cities, conducting experiments with baking soda and vinegar, and engaging in epic water balloon battles that would have made any physicist proud of the trajectory calculations involved. Lucas and Ethan ran around with their friends, their faces bright with joy and their minds temporarily free from the weight of changing the world. They were just kids playing with other kids, and it felt perfect. Look at them, Maggie said to Mrs. Henderson as they watched from the porch. They're glowing. Balance, Mrs. Henderson replied wisely. It's the secret to a happy life, whether you're a genius or not. That evening, as Maggie tucked her sons into bed, she asked them how they felt about their new schedule. Perfect, Lucas said contentedly. I can still help NASA on Tuesdays, but I can also have water balloon fights on Wednesdays. And I can still design better machines, Ethan added. But I can also just build regular Lego castles for fun. As she kissed them goodnight, Maggie realized that the greatest success hadn't been their scientific achievements or their growing education fund. The greatest success had been maintaining the delicate balance that allowed her remarkable sons to use their gifts while preserving their precious childhood. They had learned that being extraordinary didn't mean sacrificing the ordinary joys that made life beautiful. Sometimes, the most important discovery was remembering how to be happy. 1 year after Victoria Sterling's blue Mustang had broken down in front of their house, the Wright family gathered on their front porch to celebrate a very special anniversary. The twins, now 8 years old, but still possessing the same wonder and enthusiasm that had charmed Victoria, were excitedly preparing for their biggest celebration yet. Victoria herself was driving up from San Francisco, her fully restored Mustang purring perfectly thanks to the boys' original repairs. She had become like family to the Wrights, visiting every few months and maintaining her role as the protective bridge between the twins and the wider scientific community. "Boys, she's here!" Mrs. Henderson called from her kitchen window, where she had been watching for Victoria's arrival. Lucas and Ethan raced to the front yard, their faces bright with excitement as the familiar blue car pulled into their driveway. Victoria stepped out, carrying a large box wrapped with a ribbon. "Miss Victoria!" both boys shouted simultaneously, running to give her the enthusiastic hugs they'd been saving up since her last visit. "Hello, my favorite problem solvers," she laughed, returning their embraces. "I can't believe it's been a whole year since we met." Maggie emerged from the house, wiping happy tears from her eyes. The past year had transformed their lives in ways she'd never imagined possible. The boys' education fund had grown substantial enough to guarantee their futures, but more importantly, they had learned to balance their extraordinary gifts with the simple joys of childhood. "Welcome back, Victoria," Maggie said warmly. "The boys have been counting down the days." Grandpa Wright joined them on the porch, his face beaming with pride. "Miss Sterling, you should see what these boys have accomplished this year. They're still changing the world, but they're also the neighborhood champions at kickball. And we built the best Lego fort in the history of Millfield," Ethan added proudly. "It has working lights and a water fountain," Lucas explained seriously, as if these were the most important engineering features imaginable. Victoria laughed with delight. "I can't wait to see this engineering marvel. But first, I have something special for both of you." She presented the large wrapped box to the twins. Inside, they found something that made their eyes widen with wonder. A professional engineering kit, complete with precision tools, measurement devices, and materials for building real prototypes, but sized perfectly for 8-year-old hands. "This is for all your future inventions," Victoria explained. "Whether you're solving problems for NASA or just building backyard forts, you should have the right tools." But the real surprise came next. Victoria pulled out 2 official-looking documents with ribbons attached. "Boys, I'm proud to present you with your first real consulting contracts. The City of San Francisco has officially hired LW and EW Consulting to help design more efficient traffic light systems. The pay rate is 50 chocolate bars per intersection, optimized." Lucas and Ethan looked at each other with amazement. Their first official contract. Their own consulting business. "Does this mean we're real business people now?" Ethan asked. "You've been real business people since the day you fixed my car for chocolate bars," Victoria replied. "This just makes it official." That evening, the extended Wright family, including Mrs. Henderson, who had become an honorary grandmother, gathered for a celebration dinner. As they sat around the table sharing stories and laughter, Victoria raised her glass of sweet tea. "I'd like to propose a toast," she said. "1 year ago, I was a stressed businesswoman whose car broke down in a small town. I thought I was just seeking automotive repair." She looked at Lucas and Ethan with profound affection. "Instead, I discovered 2 remarkable young men who taught me that the most important innovations aren't just about solving technical problems, they're about solving them with love, family support, and the wisdom to know when to work and when to play. To the Wright family," she continued, "who proved that extraordinary gifts and ordinary happiness can coexist beautifully." As they clinked glasses, Maggie felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Her sons had found their perfect balance. They were still the beloved, protected children she had raised, but now they were also confident young innovators who knew their worth and understood their purpose. "Miss Victoria," Lucas said as dessert was served, "do you remember when you first asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up?" "I don't think I ever asked you that," Victoria replied. Puzzled. "You didn't have to," Ethan grinned. "We figured it out anyway." "We want to be exactly what we are now," Lucas explained. "Problem solvers who help people, but who also remember to have fun and spend time with the people we love. And we want to keep earning chocolate bars," Ethan added practically, making everyone laugh. Later that evening, as Victoria prepared to stay overnight before returning to San Francisco, she found herself reflecting on the incredible year. The twins had contributed to breakthrough research in renewable energy, helped solve critical engineering problems, and earned recognition from the highest levels of government and academia, all while maintaining their anonymity and their childhood. But more importantly, they had shown the world a new model for nurturing exceptional talent. You didn't have to choose between genius and happiness, between achievement and family, between changing the world and enjoying simple pleasures. "Grandpa," Lucas whispered as they said their goodnights, "do you think we'll keep solving problems when we're as old as you?" "I hope so, son," Grandpa Wright replied with a warm smile. "But I also hope you'll always remember that the best problems to solve are the ones that help people you care about." As the Wright household settled into peaceful sleep, Victoria looked out at the quiet streets of Millfield and marveled at the extraordinary, ordinary life this family had created. They had proven that sometimes the most important discoveries happen not in laboratories or boardrooms, but around kitchen tables where love and wisdom guide every decision. The next morning, as Victoria prepared to drive away in her perfectly maintained Mustang, she knew she would be back soon. After all, she had the best consulting team in the world right here in Millfield, two 8-year-old boys who measured their success not just in problems solved, but in chocolate bars earned and families loved. The adventure was far from over. It was just beginning, one chocolate bar at a time.